regime that, by the way, is not democratically elected.
Yeah, I mean, that is an excellent point, is that I think we sort of look at Russia and only think about the Putin end of the spectrum, right? But, I mean, where do you see this relationship going? It feels like it's deteriorating, or perhaps it was just destined to deteriorate. What do you make of it?
Well, I'm actually never thought that it's going to go anywhere. In fact, I wrote last summer that Putin is a pragmatic politician. He cannot possibly not think that a disaster of Donald Trump is going to work wonders for him. He could have hoped. He thought he could manipulate it. He used it for as long as he could have. But now the reality, as I said, kicked in. For example, yes, not only Tillerson didn't meet with the civil society members, which I believe that probably in his own pragmatic mind, he really couldn't have done it. But I do hope to see it in the future. But also, he didn't do something that what Russians absolutely wanted to, and that's why Putin met with him, I believe, is that to arrange a meeting between President Trump and President Putin. And that didn't happen. And so as much as Russians want to have a relationship with the United States, they are clearly understanding that the longer that meeting doesn't happen, the more Putin would actually turn to his own devices. And that is a big, big danger. And I agree with Vladimir completely that it is an authoritarian regime. It needs to be talked to. And therefore, the longer it's not talked to, the more authoritarian it becomes.
And very quickly, I mean, the fear that a lot of Americans have, or the sort of underlying undercurrent, is that there is some retaliation that regime might use because it might have something on Donald Trump.
I'm certain, because Putin, as I keep saying, I think on the show, he's an equal opportunity offender. He hacked Hillary Clinton's campaign. They certainly hacked the Trump campaign. Yeah. And they will be very willing to act on it in an act of cyber war, as Malcolm Nunn always reminds us we're here, that would be very dangerous, and then really can turn this relationship into worse ditch that it is on already.
Yeah, it would be absolute chaos. One more question to you, Vladimir, on the protests that we saw, which was pretty extraordinary, the people taking to the streets, protesting the Putin regime. What is the status of that movement, that protest movement against Putin, and where does it go from here?
Well, absolutely. Just a couple of weeks ago, at the end of March, tens of thousands of people went to the streets across Russia, 84 different towns and cities, east to west, Vladivostok to Kaliningrad. And most of those who went out to the streets to protest against the regime were young people, university students, high school kids in many cases, people in their 20s and their 30s and even their teens. And this is the new generation of Russia. These are the faces of tomorrow's Russia. And they're saying no. They're saying enough. And there's frankly not much that Mr. Putin will be able to do with that in the long term or even the medium term. And there's a new wave of protests planned for the next weekend. In fact, a couple of weeks from, no, the following weekend, excuse me, a couple of weeks from today. Then there's another wave planned for mid-June. And I think this is not going to stop. This is only the beginning. The young generation of Russians are increasingly realizing that this regime is robbing them, not only literally in terms of the egregious corruption that it's engaging in, and these were, of course, the immediate reasons for the protests, but also robbing them of their future and of their prospects. Russia deserves so much better than a kleptocratic or authoritarian regime, and many, many people are realizing it across the country, and I think this is only the beginning.
Yeah, I think sort of the tragedy for a lot of Americans is that a lot of people, I think, feel that a different kind of American administration might be encouraging those young people and might be standing with them.
My nephew went.
Yeah.
My nephew, 20-year-old nephew, went and screamed against Putin. So here we go.
Makes you wistful. Another kind of situation, we'll put it that way. Nina Khrushcheva and Vladimir Kara-Murza, thank you very much. Appreciate you guys.
Thank you.
All right, and up next, Jefferson